She said. Hi, I'm Joanne Kabami. I live at 1982 Greenview, and hi, Mayor Jordan and City Council. And I'll read this so I stay on task. As we consider best how to move forward with the streamside protection, we have to address some general issues that have come up with almost every speaker as we talk. First, no private landowner wants to be told what they can do with their property. Second, no one wants their property flooded, contaminated, eroded away by actions or inactions of people upstream. I think every one of us want clean water. And we all want waterways that are safe, free of toxins and poisons, and a pleasure to look at. So now that we are sort of together, we all want the same things. The problem is everyone, we have to come together on how to do this. Everyone wants to control their property. While this sounds fine, we need to remember that with ownership comes responsibility to be a good steward. Activities that take place in and around waterways do not stay within the confines of personal property and are experienced by those downstream, so extra vigilance must be taken to protect those waterways. This includes protecting the streams from erosional processes, as you all know, contamination, and understanding floodplains, and this also includes what's appropriate for these areas and what probably shouldn't go on in these areas. As for the last two issues that I talked about, the clean water and safe water, no one agrees with this. The dispute comes to how we get there. As a community, we need to work together, and that becomes the job of our elected officials to become educated about the issues that are facing us, and I think you've done an excellent job. I think the staff has done a wonderful job in collecting very complicated materials and putting something coherent together. Educating the public, which I think also is going on, which is wonderful, and working with residents to protect this communal resource, because the waterways are a communal resource, while protecting individual property rights and making sure property owners understand the responsibilities that they need to meet also. I'm sort of throwing a red herring in here. I was thinking about this all day, and maybe there's a compromise of sorts that could come together, and I don't know if that's something this body can do or not, but maybe to help landowners who are burdened with having to care for the water and the banks of our streams. Maybe we could work out something where the city would be able to give some sort of a lower tax rate to those floodplain areas that were dealt with in a responsible manner, that we're used the stream practice the best management practices, just sort of as an incentive to help people want that extra bit to want to cooperate on hold. I'm just throwing that out there. We need to trust that our elected officials are making rational choices that are for the good of the community and for the individual property owners also. You have my vote of confidence, and I applaud your attempts to protect our streams, and I hope you will vote in favor of this and not wait. I think waiting probably isn't a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is John Pennington. I'm a Cooperative Extension Service employee. I do water quality outreach and education, and I have collected input from streamside landowners specifically for the city as related to this ordinance. In working with the landowners, a report was made that reflected their comments and their feelings. The information was prioritized. The participants of these educational opportunities were the people that voted for what was most important to them in terms of problems with the ordinance potentially, and then benefits that might happen from the ordinance. And I would just like to encourage you all to make sure that you take a look at that report if you have not already, because I feel like it offers some great insight into what a lot of people here tonight have been commenting on, and a few additional things. And then also we are having an educational streamside land management workshop on March 5th. And, water quality outreach and education, a buffer is great. A buffer is beneficial for water quality, does so many great things. We always encourage people to do this, voluntarily, just because of the nature of our agency and our public agency, and we have to be cooperative, so to speak. And so whenever we come in with a heavy hand, we sort of lose our cooperative spirit. And I've made a lot of progress working with people. I've seen beneficial management changes made after people have been exposed to educational material, but at the same time, there's always people that will not catch on or will not catch on quickly or will only go so far. And, in those cases, I always choose to just wait it out and work and slowly kind of work with an individual and see that progress can be made. The ordinance that y'all are looking at right now is one that would take voluntary out of it, and it would just make it, it's a mandatory buffer. As the woman who was just up here before me spoke about compromise, in terms of there obviously are people that support this and want it to go further than it is even, and then there are those that don't. The spirit of compromise, if you are to pass this ordinance, if you can somehow find a way, and I believe there are ways to compromise this so that it is the most acceptable to those that have conflicts with it, but it is still acceptable to those that are behind the concept, that might be one of the best ways to move forward. And however you all decide to do this, if it's an ordinance and that's the way it's going to be from now on, I think you can always count on the local educational outlets around here to carry out workshops and provide information for people. And also, if you do not pass this ordinance, that we will still be available as a resource for education. And if you want to, I think it would be a great thing to come to the workshop on March 5th, because it's about streamside land management considerations. And I'm sure you're very well versed on all the considerations after hearing all the comment. But it might be beneficial, and the date of that workshop is actually after what is, I guess, the next scheduled reading on March 1st. So you might not be able to make that workshop, but if you can't, I think it would be really good just to look through that input report and just get the feedback as it is, prioritized from the people, and that might be a great way to find compromise if you all decide to move forward with this. Thank you for your time.
My name is Frank Sharp, and I live at 2062 South Smokehouse Trail, Ward 4. And I hope you all will indulge me while I reminisce, because the way I was brought up, I've never taken water for granted. My parents moved here with us kids from Texas in 1943, and they bought a rocky hillside farm on the slopes of Mount Kessler, west of the little town of Fayetteville. It had 7,000 people, and east of the village of Farmington, they had about 100. And they bought a little house that could be described as having 3 rooms and a path. The path led to a rather chilly outhouse. We had an old hand-dug well, we had a pulley, we had a chain, a bucket. And when you carry water in a bucket, you do not waste water. Actually, we even fed the dishwater back. We'd mix it with shorts and feed it to our hogs. Some of you younger people can ask the mayor what shorts are. I bet he can answer that. Yeah. Well, my father was a city slicker, so he did put a pump in the well. And we had indoor plumbing. And my parents just loved to entertain, and they would give a great big party and big barbecue and ask half the countryside. But unfortunately, most of them, a lot of them were city folks, they'd flush the toilets. And usually the well would run dry about halfway through the party. My cousin was visiting from Texas, and he said that was the first party he'd ever gone to where the water ran out before the alcohol did. And actually, water is the reason that I'm in the, well, to get back about late 40s, my father started raising dressing and smoking turkeys on our farm. Started a little company called Ozark Mountain Smokehouse. And it was a real challenge, I tell you, to raise turkeys out of automatic waterers off an old well. And as the smokehouse grew, I was forced to annex into the city of Fayetteville just to tap into your water supply, because when you're in a government-inspected food business, you've got to have safe, abundant, economical water. And that's even more so for big companies like Pinnacle Foods and Newlyweds and George's and Tyson. I can remember knowing people who made a huge sacrifice when their farms and property were taken by Beaver Lake. And some of them lived there for generations. And their huge sacrifice has been a factor in the growth of Northwest Arkansas. And their huge sacrifice has helped everyone in this room. And I think we ought to make a fairly small sacrifice to protect this vital water supply. And I urge you to support the Streamside Ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for taking the mayor down memory lane as well.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honored council. I'm Lauren Hawkins. Thank you so much for this opportunity, for the city's staff's work to help us create outstanding neighborhoods, to help us continue to create outstanding neighborhoods, to be more than proud owners as we struggle to provide healthy conditions for our families and friends, but more to be good stewards of our city and our land. We all live downstream from someone. We all live upstream from someone else. Let's seize and embrace this opportunity to assist each other to do the right thing, and please support this ordinance. Thank you. Thank you. Lauren.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Robert Kosick. I am the president of the Northwest Arkansas Property Rights Association. I have probably changed this presentation at least 6 times since I've been sitting here in the audience tonight. And probably about now, most of you are probably bored stiff. Anyway, I would like to commend you for your concern about water quality. I've been an Arkansas resident for 30 years. I live on Beaver Lake. I have lived on Beaver Lake for 30 years. I've lived on both the upper end, close to Hickory Creek, and I now live in the middle part of the lake in the Rocky Branch area. So I've seen about everything. I've seen major fish kills from Fayetteville pollution when it overflowed to a very clear lake as we have it right now. However, I think you are trying to fix something that is really not broke. I say this because, like it's been mentioned before, I can absolutely prove that the water quality in Beaver Lake has been steadily improving since about 1987-88 when the Fayetteville Nolan Water Treatment Plant went online to the present time. And it is still improving. Now this is in spite of all the increase in population, all the increase in industry. Rogers itself has had a 100% increase in population in the last 10 years. There's been a 50 or to 75% decrease in fish production in the upper part of the lake because of the nutrient reduction. What has caused this, quite frankly, is the reduction in algae growth. The bait fish feed on the algae and the game fish feed on the bait fish. I'm asking you to use a little bit of common sense tonight because they have said, Beaver Water District states that the organic carbon has been increasing. Well, organic carbon is a result of decomposition. And I find myself questioning how can you have the increase in organic carbon when you've had a tremendous decrease in algae? It just does not make sense. We have all kinds of rules and regulations in effect. I think the big reason why Beaver Lake has been improving and our nutrient levels have been decreasing steadily is because of the EPA, the ADEQ, the NRCS, Farm Service Agency. All these rules and regulations are in effect. You see them every day. You go down to Walmart and see the big settlement pond down there. You go to a big development, you see the silt fences that prevent sediment from getting into our system. All these things are contributing to our present water quality. So like I say, I think you're trying to fix something that really doesn't need fixing. If we keep on utilizing what's presently on the books, I don't see any problem. But we need to keep on utilizing these best management practices. I've heard all kinds of tales. Septic tanks causing pollution in the lakes. Okay, go up to Bella Vista. You got wall-to-wall homes around those lakes, 3/4 acre lots. They've checked those lakes up one side and down the other side, have thermal flyovers, done everything up there, and they can find no pollution being caused by septic tanks. There was some pollution caused by over-fertilizing of yards, and they've more or less corrected that. People have gotten wise and realized they can't go out there and throw a ton of fertilizer on a 1 acre tract of ground because someone's going to leach out and go into the lake, and that's bad news. But anyway, there's been no fecal coliform getting to the lakes. The only problems they've had has been too many geese on their beaches. Now, I know our attorney over here mentioned the fact that a lot of Supreme Court decisions supporting your position. But believe me, folks, when I tell you, there's an awful lot of Supreme Court decisions supporting the property owners too, just as many, if not more. Might want to look into Section 42, Civil Rights Act. I think it's 1983. I got a copy of it here, which I'll make available to you. Getting back to your ordinance itself, I have seen or read nothing on how they are going to improve the stream banks. How is the city going to go out there and improve these stream banks? You pass this ordinance, are you going to go out there and provide the money to improve these stream banks, or are you going to try to force the property owner to do this? One other thing I've seen on this ordinance is the city engineer seems to make all the decisions. Everything seems to relate back to the city engineer. He seems to be God in this case. Also, I noticed that the ordinance can be changed at your whim. Anytime you want to change that ordinance just by the stroke of the pen, city engineer can change it. That's the way it reads right now. I've lived here, like I said, for 30 years, and I think that speaks for itself. It's a beautiful area. I want to keep it that way. I want to keep the water clean. But I'd like to see you in place of making this a mandatory ordinance like John just spoke about. I'd like to see you do this thing in a teaching format. Contact the Iliinois River Watershed Protection Association, see how they're doing it. I've talked to those people extensively about this, and they think that it should be done in a teaching situation. You should not have an ordinance passed. And I do think that you're exposing your own personal assets and the assets of the city.
Mr. Costa, can I ask you, so the Iliinois River group said that we shouldn't pass an ordinance?
I'm sorry, sir?
Did you say that the Iliinois Watershed?
The Iliinois River Watershed Protection group over there does all their work through teaching. They conduct all kinds of workshops. Nothing is done by ordinance.
I wanted to be sure I clarified your statement. Did you say they did not support the ordinance?
I'm sorry, sir?
I thought I heard you say that they didn't support the ordinance. I just want to be sure.
They do not support the ordinance. That is correct.
Okay.
I talked to Delia Hawk, and she says she does not support the ordinance.
Okay.
Unless I'm misquoting her, and I don't think I am. I talked to her about a week ago. And they would like to see this thing as a voluntary teaching situation. Yes. See what else I've got here. I had so many notes, I've changed it so many times, I can't hardly keep track of it myself. I think everything else has been pretty adequately covered tonight. I do believe that you need to research the area of this thing as to how many Supreme Court decisions have supported the property owners as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Karen Reese. I'm a Fayetteville resident. I'm also a real estate broker here, and I'm involved with property values and property a lot on a daily basis. And my concern is not so much with water quality as it is topography, because that's the area, that's my area. My areas, the areas that I sell are the established neighborhoods of Fayetteville. That's where I focus my energies. And those areas, in those areas, the values have remained stable, in part because of the natural resources, because of the trees, because of the streams, but mainly because they're not houses that are sitting in a pasture that have been divided and have no natural or organically old trees. And one of the things that I've noticed is that so these values have remained more stable, and one thing that I've noticed is that when I do sell in newer neighborhoods, that an older tree, one that was planted before the development took place, adds a tremendous amount of value, thousands of dollars of value to a piece of property. And it's amazing to me how it's usually the first lot sold, how people say, well, I want this, this one, well, that's $10,000 more, okay, it's worth it to me. So I think it's really important to consider natural resources when we consider property values, and I urge you to support the Streamside Protection Ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, good evening. Thank you for staying so late to hear us and voice our views. I am a mother of a 2.5-year-old who, of course, means the world to me. And
I'm sorry, did you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry. My name is Liev Black, L-I-E-V. Didn't think it mattered. I'm just a mom, and I live in West Fork, and I'm here tonight pretty much unprepared, and I'm going to keep it short, though, because I'm so excited to hear about this ordinance, and I'm so excited because in West Fork, the water is so left alone, so not regulated, that we have arsenic in our water from railroad ties that have been dumped there. And we have human sewage in our water. We've got teenagers jumping off of cliffs every summer. It's pastime that's, I don't know, it just goes beyond the books. It's a tradition for the high schoolers. My daughter, as a 2-year-old, was playing in that water this summer, and I commented to her grandmother was visiting, it smelled like human sewage. And in fact, it was. We found out through Justin Harris in West Fork that our children there are playing in human sewage. My point, of course, is that we can't expect people as motorists on the roads to mind the speed limits and write their own tickets when they decide they're not going to. It's just human nature. We see trouble in the air. Excuse me, sir?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just talking to myself.
Sure. Well, we see trouble in the air and the water, the soil, all around us. And we might say it's good enough, it's more or less fine, but it all adds up. If something in our food isn't quite right, if there's contamination in the air we're breathing that's not quite right, if our furniture is off-gassing, and then our water, well, it's not as bad here as it is in West Fork, it almost couldn't possibly be, it all adds up. And I know people are afraid of regulation, but I don't think that's the word we should be using here. It's just common sense. I would like to see this ordinance not only pass, but be a model for other communities. And I'd hate to see, water running through this city and running on downstream that is contaminated. It could be tested on a good day and look fine. We don't know what's going through in acute instances and affecting not only ourselves, but our children, our grandchildren. I sure wish I wish I could let my daughter play in that water. I don't know what to tell her this summer when she wants to play in the water with the other children who don't know what's in it. I don't know what to tell their parents either. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dot Neely. I live in Ward 1. And I have listened to the comments tonight, and I've been following the process of creating the stream protection ordinance for 2 or 3 years now with various volunteer opportunities that I've been participating in and workshops on stormwater, dealing with stormwater, with the Green Infrastructure Planning Project. And something that I look at is the results of our recent census. In 1960, the combined populations of Benton and Washington counties were under 100,000 people in 1960. 50 years later, where we are now, the combined populations of Washington and Benton counties are approaching 450,000. In just 50 years, we've had an increase of over 300,000 people in the area, and the projections are for the population to surpass 800,000 in the next 14 years, and by 2050, the population in Northwest Arkansas to go over 1 million. And while things may be looking pretty good for our area, there are some dramatic changes coming. There have been dramatic changes in the past 50 years. There's dramatic changes projected. I see the Riparian Zone Ordinance, also known as a Streamside Protection Ordinance, as an opportunity now to put in place safeguards that will help the whole community. Everybody has to be on board with what is done for everyone to receive the benefit from it. And I just see this as an opportunity now to put some safeguards in place for our land resources and the streams that feed our water supply, so that we can have some guidelines for the growth that we will have to accommodate, and that will protect our resources, the good things about what bring people to this area with this opportunity now. And we look toward the future. Things are not static in the world, and what happens on my property doesn't always stay on my property. We all affect each other, and that point has been made a few times already. But this is looking down the road, and it's protecting some of the natural resources and quality of life we enjoy now, so that future generations and future people that come to this area can continue to enjoy these things. And a healthy environment does. It's been proven across the country in cities that have been forward-looking, like Portland, Oregon is one example, but these cities years ago put in place some things that would protect their natural resources, and it has proven to be an economic boom for those communities that look ahead and protect some of the natural aspects of their environment. It ensures the vitality and the viability of the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Bob Morgan, Beaver Water District, resident of Springdale. Just wanted to make a quick comment about the Nolan treatment plant. The staff out there is doing a very good job of running that plant. In fact, I think they have optimized their operation right now. In effect, they've taken all the low-hanging fruit in terms of phosphorus and nutrients. And to get any more out of that plant, the cost goes up exponentially. It's easy to get down to 1 milligram per liter, but as you go lower than that, it gets much, much, much more difficult. And if they get much lower than where they are right now, they're probably going to end up putting in new facilities, which would raise the cost and raise the rates in the city. And that's kind of the whole point of this agreement, was that it doesn't really make sense to spend that much money on a plant to get a little bit more phosphorus out when the big issue is the non-point sources of phosphorus. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, I'm sure you're as tired as I am. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you, and I have enjoyed this exercise in democracy.
Could I get your name?
Oh, in a minute. I'll get there.
I'm sorry.
I also always wondered what people did on Tuesday nights. I appreciate the response to my letters that you have made, and I appreciate the service that you provide this community as elected members. So thank you, before you even know my name, for serving our community. I am Cynthia Hasselhoff, steward of May Farm. May Farm is a sustainable organic farm and agritourism venue located north of the mall and Locomotion. We like to say we're in uptown Fayetteville and downtown Northwest Arkansas. We are an educational resource for the community and its children, showing how man and the environment can coexist, cohabitate for mutual productive benefit. We have 301.41 feet of streamside. We improved it 50 years ago. The eroded pictures you see there are not us. The 50 feet your proposed ordinance would take runs from where the mayor sits through the door to the top of the stairs. This room is 51 feet from those windows to those. That's a lot of land. And that's what you're proposing to take. If you multiplied the 50 feet that the ordinance proposes by the 301.41 feet that we own, that would equal 15,070.5 square feet. If that land sold for $5 a square foot, the value of our improved streamside lakeland would be $75,352.50. At $10 a square foot, it would be worth $150,705. Aside from the love of this land, we have a significant financial stake in your proposed ordinance. In January, I wrote you a letter expressing my strong opposition to the proposed ordinance. I listed 5 problems with the ordinance which I thought were logical and non-emotional. Among those were placing the entire burden for 425,000 people in the watershed on 1,300 property owners without controlling the issues created by the other 423,700. I mentioned that this was possibly a taking. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Williams tonight and say there are better lawyers that can argue that point than I am. I do know it is perceived as a taking, and it sure feels like a taking. I objected also to investing time and money in an ordinance which really does not solve the problem of the existing water drainage system and the treatment plants. Since then, thoughts have occurred to me, like some of the scientific studies that have been mentioned tonight, the phosphorus levels, the changing technology, the cost or even double cost to the city, the maintenance of this land that you will, take? I don't even know how to, the cost of maintaining that land, and the cost of enforcing this ordinance. And then I have a question about what the ordinance is really about. Is it about pollution? Is it about erosion? Is it about public recreation on private land? As a homeowner, one of our primary rights is the right to exclude people from our property. That's law level property one. I love my land, and I really like to not have a bicycle path through it. And I don't know that this ordinance can one day accommodate that. My family and I have worked 50 years on our land. In fact, we're celebrating 50 years in Fayetteville this summer. Last Wednesday, while I was shoveling 36-inch drifts of global warming to feed my birds, I had time for some personal reflections, and these are thoughts on a personal level. What do you think property owners are? I watch your faces as people come up, and I wonder, do you think that we're some horrible herd of barbarians come to rape, pillage, plunder, and destroy? This is our community. This is our land. This is our home. Your ordinance personally insults me, each of us, because you have said to me and to these others that I can't take care of my land better than someone in the bowels of the regulatocracy. Let me say this with the utmost sincerity and truth-telling. No one is more aware that I am a steward of this land than I am. I hold it in trust to the past and to the future. No one cares more about the water, the wildlife, the birds, and that land than I do. No one loves it more. I love caring for it. I love improving it. I love learning about it and my part in it. I love my stewardship of it. I love my land. I am not your problem. Yet you want to take my land like taking a beloved child from a loving, caring home and putting him in state-directed foster care. My father, steward of the land before me, used to tell the story of a good farmer who bought a rundown, eroded mess of a farm and fixed it up. One day a preacher came by and admired the wonders of this improved property. He said, "Brother, you and the Lord have done a fine job on this old farm." And the farmer looked around and he thought a minute and he said, "Yeah, preacher, but you should have seen it when the Lord had it by himself." Do you really want this land of ours by yourself? Picture what you could be creating here. 100-wide swath of sacrosanct land through the community, on every pleasant running stream, every ditch, gully, and retention pond that will be filled with overgrown grass, trash trees, scrub brush, thistles, debris, detritus, ticks, snakes, rats, and other assorted varmints that have been enumerated by others this evening. And you put this mess in my backyard and the backyards of 1,299 other property owners. What an image. Is that a green city we can live with? Council members, please think very carefully about your Regutopia. Do you really want to do this by yourself, by fiat? You really do need stream property owners. We are your front line. We make things better as owners and stewards of our land. educate us, lead us, incentivize us, but do not make us live with this proposed ordinance. I am Cynthia Hasselhoff, steward of May Farm. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Felicia Ferris. I'm the steward and caretaker of 21 acres on Markham Hill. I'm from Ward 4. I have the southern vista on Markham Hill. It slopes on down toward 540. I do not meet the criteria for the 100 acres to have a stream through it, but I would probably meet the next stage up for 50 acres if my calculations are correct. In stating that I'm going to the 50 acres. These pictures that went around, this is about education. In all of this, especially these streams that are with the cliffs that are the sharp cutoffs, the cut banks and stuff. My questions that I was curious about, and I did a lot of reading that I could on the internet, of the various articles and stuff, the part of the meta-analysis, the gentleman from the Extension Agency, his report that he suggested that you read. But I had two numbers batted around, 200 and 300, I think, were people out of compliance, and I'd like Ms. Minkle, if she would, when this is over, to address how many out of the 1,300 would meet the criteria of being out of compliance in this situation, and what education has been done prior to this, setting us up to throw the 1,300 into this situation. Because I'm fearful if we go from this, would I be in the next batch? So I'm on the side of people not wanting to be thrown into an ordinance situation, that if we could meet a compromise and work on education, what education has been done, that this is a smart community. We're not like we're living in New England or something where we have so much turnover of people's homes, where we have maybe a disregard of larger communities where we don't know our neighbors. We are good stewards of our land, especially here in Fayetteville, and I think we could do this without having to hammer it out by handcuffing people to a strict black and white ordinance where we tattletale on each other's neighbors. Because once somebody reports someone, or it's known that someone's property is out of compliance, it's going to end up in education anyway. Two, if somebody's going to build on their property or do something in a structure-oriented nature, they're going to end up in the planning office anyway, whether there's an ordinance or it's set up for an educational situation to deal with the streamside situation. So we can do this where we learn as a property owner, or we deal with it by enforcement. And I think we bode well, because we're a community of largely an educated population, at least based on Fayetteville's been known to be the #1 city here in Arkansas for educated per person in this populated city. I'm lost my train of thought. My second question is, what's the penalty if you stay out of compliance? Mr. Harris here, that was up here, and his cattle and his stream and the trees in it, if he'd stayed out of compliance, what's going to happen to him? And just for an example, but he fixes it, it doesn't work, he fixes it again, he doesn't like to fix it anymore, it's costing him too much money. You can eventually foreclose on his land. What is his overall penalty if he just gets tired of doing it and his stream ends up, like this over and over and over again? What happens to someone like that? I haven't heard anyone address penalty. But if this is for the good of everyone, then it should be an incentive for these 1,300 people. A lot of people are doing this. Their property seems to be fine. More than 80% of the property people seem to be in compliance. So if they're going to be handcuffed, then it could most likely interfere with their property values. Then give them some type of property tax incentive. It's good for all people in community, that somehow that should be rewarded for keeping their stream banks intact. The riparian 50 feet in order. This is an easement. If it was any other form of utility easement, and this seems to fit right in there, then those things are reimbursed in some way or another in regards to financial settlements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felicia.
Good evening. My name is Peter Nukier, and I live just outside the city of Fayetteville, but in the sphere of influence, Clear Creek Development in Fayetteville, Johnson area. I'm here to ask you again, and thank you for the opportunity, to vote against this ordinance. We all agree, everybody agrees that we value clean water, we value the area. I want to say that two speakers before me, a lady by the name of Cynthia, I want to say amen to every word that she spoke. She spoke from her heart. I believe that property owners are responsible people and will, when presented, will do the right thing 99% of the time. We were presented at the beginning of this meeting with a presentation that would make anybody's head spin, and it was a full court press to extol all the virtues of this ordinance. But I'm telling you, you cannot legislate against nature. You cannot pass a law to outlaw mosquitoes. You can't pass a law to outlaw tornadoes. These pictures that were passed around were very emotional pictures, one of which was an obvious dumping on a land of trash. We don't know if that was done by a property owner or by somebody that backed their pickup truck up to the stream and dumped it in. But when you looked at it, your assumption was, oh, bad property owner. It could have been a victimized property owner by somebody. Another lady said she had a lot of debris rushing onto her property, plastic bags and things like that. And the assumption was maybe they came from a property owner. Maybe most of that debris came from people hiking on the trails that didn't that dumped their debris. So I think if what I would propose was to do a thorough survey of the 1,300 property owners, all the stream areas, to see where the infractions are, to use education, to honor property owners rather than try to control them, to assume that they will do the right thing when approached and educated. And we all want our waterways, our stream sites to be protected. We all want clear water. We differ in the fact of whether it's Big Brother's responsibility or it's our responsibility as property owners. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Mr. Mayor and then City Council, I did email you earlier today and just want to make a couple quick comments. I know it's been a long night. My name is Cindy Cope, and I have served the city for many years. Currently on the Tree and Landscape Committee, Environmental Action Committee. I work with the schools and their education. I live in Ward 3. I also have property on Beaver Lake. I don't see a problem at Beaver Lake with the Corps telling me what I can and cannot do. Even a dead tree will reduce the amount of land washed away when there's a major storm event. I have neighbors that live along the creek, educated, wealthy individuals, and they don't spend any time in their yard. They don't care. They hire these services to come and spray pesticide and herbicide on their property. When there is that major rain event, those herbicides and pesticides go into the water. And it's not just our drinking water in Beaver Lake. I empathize with that young mother. How can you let your kids play in some of the creeks in Fayetteville when they have all of these pollutants going in it? So I applaud the Streamside Ordinance, and I hope that you will pass it.
Thanks.
Hello, folks. Mayor, would you please convey to Rhonda, Justin, and Mark welcome? I have not seen them since they were on the board and to tell Bobby that I like his beard. It looks snuggly.
She said, continues to be a daisy, man.
That's high praise, Bobby.
Yeah, I don't think it'll do you much good. Go ahead.
I wish you would also convey to Alderwoman Teal that as long as we have 5 miles out for jurisdiction of city health, safety, and welfare, whatever you would phrase it, Attorney Williams, that we need to allow anybody who wants to come up here and talk.
I forgot about you.
You sure did. If you live
that came
across,
actually from a good friend of yours that requested that.
Yeah, I understand your reasoning, and I agree with it to a point, but I would like to remind you that you flush into the county. I would like to say that what we need to do here is clarify this discussion. For one thing, it's a human discussion. We humans are in charge of all of these wonderful environmental things we say we want to protect. What we're doing here is talking about people using the land and the water, and so we need to decide something. We need to decide if we agree or that we disagree that pesticides and fertilizers run into the water. We need to decide if medicine, soap, household cleaners, trash get into water. We need to decide whether or not we flush into water. We need to decide whether or not gasoline and oil wash off of our roads and our parking lots and service stations, or is sometimes dumped on the ground or put down drains. We need to decide this. This is in your mental capacity to decide whether this is true or not true. I want to give you a little bit of education here. 1 gallon of motor oil can contaminate 1 million gallons of water. 1 gallon, size of your milk jug. 1 quart of motor oil can create an oil slick 2 acres in size. So that's what we're talking about. These are usually non-point sources of pollution. Non-point is what this ordinance is about. It's not just about the phosphorus. It's not just about the nutrients. It's about non-point and where these things come from and where the various problems come from. And another non-point I'd like to mention is that the average size dog dropping contains 3 billion, that's with a B, fecal coliform bacteria. Excuse me. But by volume, not by toxicity and danger, the biggest pollutant, of course, is sediment or soil. And I hope that you folks, especially you new ones, get out and look after we have a storm. Drive around town and figure out where the sediment is coming from and where it's going. Because the minute you see turbidity, you are dealing with sediment that is going to our drinking water that we then have to get back out. The things I think we need to do to fix these mistakes, or not fix them, because this is what we're choosing here tonight, is that supposedly we want all this clean water and for our gardens and farms and to bathe in, to wash our dishes, wash our cars, but this is just an assumption. I have been in the environmental game since 1968. And we make this assumption that everybody's got the same priorities we do. But this is not true, or we wouldn't even be discussing this tonight if we all had the same priorities. It's painfully apparent that we don't. And a lot of people would put their cars above their health. We see this all the time. So please keep that in mind. This is an assumption. How are those of us who are worried trying to fix what's going wrong or not fix it? With the science, it's been debated tonight, but with the best science that we have from all the research that's been done by people volunteering and working on staff with the city, what Ms. Minkle presented was as close as we can explain what the situation is with the water. And I would like to point out to you that last year we had watershed luncheons, which were sponsored by the Environmental Action Committee. And they were all on water and pollutants and watershed. And I wish every one of you had been there, because we really wouldn't be having to have a whole lot of this discussion if you had been there and learned all of this stuff. City staff, city committees and commissions, government and citizen efforts. Fayetteville Forward, I chaired the Green Infrastructure Committee for a while, and this was what that was all about, to try to make the connection between the economy and what the green infrastructure was serving. And you've heard all about the cost of the flooding and water treatment and so forth. So that's a connection. The university researchers, citizen groups like Fayetteville Natural Heritage, and the Extension Service, and the water treatment staff, and the watershed and wetland restoration professionals and citizens like me and Alderman Lewis, who has seen what's happening to water quality. We're trying, but we all are continuing to assume that we've got the same priorities. And I would like to address the compromise and education part. Our water, our air, our entire globe is already compromised. They are finding toxins in the last place on earth in creatures that you would imagine, in the highest poles, in the lowest Amazon. Everywhere on this planet there are chemicals in fetal tissue. Those are not Mother Nature's chemicals. Those are ours. And I would like to also say that I've been in this game 44 years, and education is a crock. If it was not, we wouldn't have these problems right now. Been trying to get educated people to understand about solid waste. We are on Mars these days, but we still can't seem to separate our garbage. So you can educate out the gazoo, but every now and then you just have to say, this is the best health, safety, and welfare issue for the citizens as a whole, and this is what we've got to do. And so buck up and do it. And for the property owners that are directly affected, who have spoken tonight and spoken other times about an ordinance that's trying to manage them, I want them to know that I agree with your anger and your frustrations and your feelings of being overrun. I've been in your shoes and felt like you feel, because I live on Fox Hunter Road. I want to tell you about that. We bought a house and 15 acres in 1986. I want you to know what you can give up for civic sacrifice. The last survey showed we only had 13 acres. More or less. In the last 25 years we've lived there, the road along one side of our property has gradually gone from a 1 lane to a 2 lane, with right-of-way, with sewer lines. And so all in all, we've lost 2 acres. Never paid for it. Also, in 1986, the city decided it wanted to build an incinerator and burn trash down our road. And although the plan was stopped, it could have meant at least 90 truck trips by our house. And that was before the city grew another 25% in the last 25 years. It would also have meant that we would have smokestacks up our noses and spewing toxins and leads and furans and dioxins, which was the worst possible condition that we could have had for the citizens of Fayetteville. Then a larger sewer line carrying all the sewage of Fayetteville was installed down our road. And again, more right-of-way, no money. And all the trees were cut for that buffer, for that increased right-of-way. We lost 12 feet of land due to the county road drain that drains on us. They won't change it. We have been smelling sewage 20 of the last 25 years. Fortunately, we no longer have that problem, but it did have a real it just really put a damper on your social life. You just couldn't have people over because that might be one of those times that the plant decided to go. And about 10 years ago, the Planning Commission was about to let a developer clear down all the huge trees along our road because he wanted to face his development to our road. And these are probably 100-year-old trees. Had to fight that one off. And then 2 years ago, when the city had its ice storm, we had, because that's down at the plant, it's where they needed to take all the storm debris. The trucks were going up and down our road, trucks the size of railroad cars. And finally, one of them ran me into the ditch, and I called the mayor and I said, "That's it. I survived this time, but next time somebody's going to die." And so, fortunately, that finally got resolved. But I point out all these things to tell these people who are having this grief that there's a lot of sacrifice in living in Fayetteville. And I don't even live in Fayetteville. I live across the street from it, from the city line. So I just also want to say that in the way of stewardship, we have 2 streams and a pond, and we intend to keep protecting them as we always have. But sometimes Cinderella's stepsisters are trying to put too big a foot into too small a shoe. And sometimes people are putting too much stuff on a small piece of property. And we are putting the shoe on the wrong foot. People need to prove that they are protecting the water on their property. They need to prove that if they want to do all these things, that it's not causing the water to be polluted. The burden of proof needs to be on the right person, or on the right party. And if we had education for all of these folks, I don't see what the problem is with having the ordinance. If you're going to do it anyway and you just want to be educated, well, the ordinance is just there to back you up. If you're not going to do it, no amount of education is going to help. So this is just one of those buck up and do it things. And I want to point out one more thing. Our bodies contain 66% water. 83% of our blood is water. And believe it or not, 75% of our brains, which with all the pollution we've got out there might explain some of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank.
I'm Gladys Tiffany, and I live along Spout Spring Branch along Willow Street. My husband and I have been renovating an old house on Willow, and we love the neighborhood. It's been very nice for us. As I listened tonight, I've noted that a lot of the dissatisfaction that seems to be coming from this ordinance comes from the fact that people are very leery about being regulated. And it seems to me that a lot of people feel like the need for regulation means that somebody is to blame and that the property owners along our streams are at fault for something. And that's not the way I feel about it. I really feel like as we work on this as a common good, that the property that we are setting aside for this ordinance is really a common good benefit that we can give to our community that does not mean that we're at fault for something. And I really hope people can see that they are, that they have a duty and a pleasure to give to a community that gives so much to us. And I'd also like to point out that that concern I also hear about fear of the regulators coming and knocking on the door. As Richard and I, my husband and I, have built this house, we've had to deal with the Planning Commission and the regulators all the time, and we have never failed to be impressed by how willing the city has been to work with us as we figured out how to manage the different things that have to happen with this. So Fayetteville is not a police state, not a police state. And I think that we need to remember that when we have to face regulation in order to do well for each other and for our community, that the city is working with us to help us do that, and it's not the enemy. Thanks.
Thank you, Gladys.
I'm David Juergens. I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm actually speaking to you as a resident of the city of Fayetteville. I live in North Crossover Road, and I am one of the residents affected by this ordinance. I actually own land on both sides of the stream that is on the map and does come within the constraints. Property rights. Frankly, as a person, as an individual, it annoys me when I get told what I can't do with my property. By the same token, it annoys me more when somebody else, what they do on their property affects my property. The city places a constraint on my property, it's a known. And I'm helpless to it, but I have to follow it, and I can follow the BMPs, and I can act within the constraint. But if somebody else does something that affects my property, I'm helpless to it. So this ordinance, from my perspective, as a directly affected resident, is two sides of the same property rights question. What constraints are placed on my property rights for what I can do with my property, but also protecting me from other people and what they do to my property. They can affect me more so than what this ordinance does to me. So this ordinance protects my property more than it constrains my property. That's my perspective as a property owner affected on both sides. So I urge my aldermen to vote in favor of this ordinance. Okay. Step away as the utilities director of the city of Fayetteville. A role I'm much more more used to standing at this podium. I can address a few of the questions that have been brought forward to you. First of all, the state of Arkansas banned phosphorus in detergents in 1994, so that's not a change. The Clean Water Act impacts point sources. So when EPA addresses pollutants in waterways, the Clean Water Act specifically addresses point sources and does not have authority over non-point sources. Therefore, they have to be able to define it as a point source before the EPA takes action to develop a permit and control those sources. Lake Fayetteville in our city has more phosphorus in it than Beaver Lake, Lake Tenkiller, the Iliinois River, or the White River. There are no point sources upstream from Beaver Lake. It is 100% from non-point source pollution. Non-point sources are critical to our waterways, and they're very difficult to address. And they are not addressable by EPA level action. They can be addressed by local action. EPA recognizes the strength of local action. I was at a meeting with EPA Region 6 in Tahlequah a few weeks ago. It was addressing the Iliinois River and the total maximum daily load regulations they're evaluating there. They specifically mentioned the actions the city of Fayetteville is taking in their presentation to help to protect waterways. One of the actions they specifically mentioned then was the low impact development ordinance. Had this ordinance already been passed, I am 100% certain they would mention this as a stronger waterway protection. It has that effect. National studies, local studies, both. The majority of the phosphorus and of the pollutants in the streams do not come from point sources. On a national level in the Mississippi River Basin, more than 87% of the nutrients in that basin come from non-point sources. Non-point source pollution is critical. It's part of the balance. Point sources must be well controlled, but non-point sources must also be managed in the best possible fashion. We've got great people in Fayetteville. Very, very environmentally aware. And yet, a program that costs nothing to the individual residents has a little over 50% participation. Every individual family resident in Fayetteville can recycle, but less than 60% do. So, God bless them, most people want to do what's right, but not all. And it's the other 40% or 45% that don't recycle, that might live on a stream, that are going to affect my property in a negative fashion. Because that's a free program. We give them the cart. They make the choice to not use it. And it's not a personal conscious decision to pollute. It's simply that they have other things that keep their lives busy. They're probably not here on Tuesday nights very often. But because their lives are busy, they don't make the correct choices to protect the environment. That's what this does. This allows us to make the correct choices and gives us the ability to do so. And it protects my property rights. and it helps the city in addressing all of the sources of the pollutants in the waterways. Thank you.
Good job.
Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council, my name is Kyle Johnson. I'll be very brief. I know the evening is going on. It's my pleasure to address you briefly tonight. I am vice steward of May Farm in North Fayetteville, and it's been my pleasure to know the Hasselhoff family for over 30 years. I can tell you from personal experience that Dr. Hasselhoff loves her land, and she does hold it in trust for future generations. But I think this council also holds its decision, its vote, its decision on this proposed ordinance as a legacy. If we go over this hurdle, if we make this proposal a law, then future aldermen can take these 50 feet and make it 100. And then the next council could make it 200. Where will it end? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is Don Pitts. I'm a resident of Fayetteville.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
My name is Don Pitts. I'm a resident of Fayetteville. I want to first say that I've sat and watched you for a long time tonight. This is the first time I've been to a council meeting in a long time. You stay very attentive, and I appreciate that. I know the pay is really high, and that's why you're doing it.
We get paid.
But anyway, I do appreciate you. What I want, my comments are going to be brief. Our family has 14 acres of land. It's where Locomotion is located. We have about 2,200 feet of streamside on both sides of the creek. We have built Locomotion, and we've used about 900 feet of that streamside. Our plans is sometime, not now as the economy is, but sometime in the future develop the rest of that property. Some of our improvements are within the 50-foot strip, as well as a lot of the improvements, as well as some buildings will be included in that 50-foot. I understand we're grandfathered in, but my concern is I develop that property further, I will be limited to how I can put that along the stream. And we have also, as you know if you've been out there, we have retaining walls, and we maintain it well and keep it up, and we intend to continue to do that. But we like to have the buildings as close to the stream rather than parking lots. In fact, our intent is to up and down the stream eventually with something that would be attractive to the area. We have sewer and water, of course, and we certainly don't feel that we're contributing to any of the pollution that's going into the streams. But my concern is that we continue to be able to develop the property and not be limited by being so close as we are right now. I appreciate your time. The amount of land that I would lose on that 50-foot would be about 2.5 acres of land. It's not my concern that we can do anything with it where the stream works it, but we do take pride in taking care of it, maintaining it, and we'd like to continue to do that, and as well to have the opportunity to develop the land. Thank you.
My name is Michael Lawley, Ward 2, Fayetteville resident, 28 years. I see this ordinance as an inevitable future. It's kind of like clean energy. It's an inevitable future. It's like low impact development. We're learning, and we're smarter now than we were 20 years ago. And so I see this ordinance as employing what we're learning, so that we're doing things smarter and better than we did 20 years ago. And so I support this ordinance. I don't see it as onerous or heavy-handed. I see it as well thought out, well researched. I support the science. I support the thoughtful research by strategic planning. I support the comparisons that they've made for other municipalities. who have other ordinances very similar and even more rigorous than this one. So I support this ordinance. I support it the way it's been written. I think it's very accommodating. I see the grandfather clauses written into it. I don't see this as anything to fear whatsoever. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eden Reef. I'm a Streamside property owner.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't catch your name.
Eden Reef. I own 185 feet of Skull Creek downtown. Yes, my property is not in compliance, and I have future plans that probably would be affected by this. But I think this ordinance is well-reasoned and the right thing to do. So that's just, we have to do it. Streams are important.
Thank you. Anybody else? Huh? If anybody else wants to speak, would you please queue?
I'm just going to be real brief too. My name's Kevin Cooper. I'm Ward 4, I think. Lived here since 2000, and just want to urge you to vote for the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is David Orr. I live at 1564 West Cedar Street in Ward 2. Beautiful downtown Ward 2, I might say, or uptown. I want to reference this photograph as one that is a particularly shocking example of how, while we might have, as one citizen said earlier, 99.9% of our citizens who do everything right and are well informed on the science. They follow best practices as a minimum. Maybe they go way beyond. But this is the embarrassing and shocking result of a small number of people who often tend to be people who have enough money to go in and build subdivisions, who can maybe they're not here tonight to promote their point of view. Maybe they hire an attorney to come and speak for them. But I think it's really important for us to look at what we're talking about. This is one example of erosion, but let's talk about sedimentation for a moment. In fact, there's been a lot of turbidity here tonight, if I might put it that way. But I do want to emphasize that I'm sure that everyone is here because they believe, we all believe that we're doing the right thing, that we want to do the right thing, and that we're all asking you to do the right thing. And it's your job, as our elected officials, as my representative, to weigh the facts and to try and sift out what might be the turbidity in the arguments. You know, back about 1933, I think it was, there was a presidential inauguration, and one of the great lines in our history was spoken by President Roosevelt. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I think that what I've heard tonight is that a lot of the citizens who really are conscientious are afraid. They're afraid of something they don't understand. Or that maybe they've been told that this Streamside Protection Ordinance is something other than what it is. But I've been watching this process. I've been watching and listening to the debates for and against. I've been very impressed with the work of the staff, the Environmental Action Committee, and your attention and your questions show that this is exactly the kind of process that gets Fayetteville the high ranking that it has nationally for a city government that works and is responsive to the citizens. So where do we go from here? Education, everyone's in favor of that. But obviously, we've got some gaps in the system. And the city's trying out everything it knows how to do to get people educated. And some people just don't care. Back in, as the city attorney mentioned at the outset of this hearing tonight, back in the 1930s, we started having laws in this state and court decisions that made it clear that municipal and local governments have the right and some would say the duty to pass laws that protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of that jurisdiction. That's what this is about. The health, safety, and public welfare is in danger when you have situations like this. Now, this cut bank here shows you just the sheer amount of sediment that has been eroded in very recent time. Where does that stuff go? It goes right down to the stream bed. That is and the process is known as aggradation as opposed to degradation. What that means in real life terms is that the bottom of the stream bed is being raised. Well, when we get a flood, what happens? That means that more land area along the stream is being flooded when the stream comes out of its banks. And when that happens, FEMA comes back and they redraw the floodplain maps. And that means that more landowners are going to find themselves over time as the stream bed elevation rises. They're going to find themselves within the 100-year floodplain. They're going to be in the same situation as Mr. Kinberg finds himself in, where he's now faced with having to buy flood insurance and address potential flooding in his property that he had nothing to do with. When I think it was about 1974 or so, when I was in high school, and I remember that the city council passed an ordinance here that made it possible for the city to come and mow your yard if you didn't do it. As far as I know, that ordinance is still in effect, and I haven't seen jackbooted thugs coming with lawnmowers to mow people's yards. It sounds a little bit preposterous, doesn't it? And we have nothing to fear but fear itself, the fear that is being expressed on the part of folks who are convinced that they are doing the right thing. But we just heard from a gentleman, a landowner, who has said that he's doing the right thing, but he wants to go and build buildings inside the 50-year buffer zone in the future. We can't do that anymore. The science is very clear. It's settled. We learn more, but everything we learn only confirms what we already know. The science tells us that the more impervious cover that you put in the watershed, the more flooding you're going to get. The science tells us that the less vegetation that you have along the stream banks, the more pollutants get into the streams. It's just basic common sense, but it's backed up by facts. One person mentioned that we were called a nutrient surplus area. Well, that's a great euphemism, isn't it? That means that we're polluted. They don't want to say it. They don't want to put it in those terms, but that's what it means. We've already got a surplus of nutrients. And that is an alarm. That ought to be ringing bells in everybody's heads, because you know what that means. If you know basic ecology, that means that Beaver Lake is going to eventually become eutrophied. That means that that off taste that everyone complains about in the city tap water every summer is going to get worse. That means that the water in Clear Creek and the Iliinois River is not going to be improved. It's going to be degraded. It's going to become more turbid. Several people testified saying that we have all these regulations that if they were just enforced, we wouldn't need anymore. Well, I agree with that, but unfortunately, ADEQ, excuse me, ADEQ has had its wings clipped by the Arkansas legislature. It can only respond to complaints. It is a complaint-driven enforcement. And all you have to do is go around this city during a thunderstorm, and I really encourage you to do that. Go visit every construction site where there's a silt fence set up. And I have done this, and I've seen at least half of them that are bleeding sediment in large amounts, super turbidity. Now, should it be my job to go and call the ADEQ and have them come out? I don't, that's what the legislature expects me to do if I don't like it. So is it my job then to go and rat on my neighbor if they're going to build something in their 50-foot buffer? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we educate people. If people understand what we're doing, if they care enough to understand that grandfathering existing activities means if you're doing it now, you can keep doing it, they'll understand that their fears are unfounded. The attorney from Springdale mentioned that reasonable environmentalists disagree on whether this disagree on this ordinance, and I agree with that. I consider myself a reasonable environmentalist, and unfortunately, while I really commend everybody involved in bringing this to this point, I think that this ordinance is woefully weak. It is not going to be strong enough, and you can, invoke all sorts of fearful mental pictures, but the reality is that we are going to have to tighten up. Now, since the last public hearing where we discussed this, there was a newspaper article where they depicted on the front page a landowner who was talking about wanting to build a swimming pool in his backyard, and he was expressing his concern about that. Well, the reality is he may or may not, depending on what you choose to do here in terms of passing an ordinance, he may or may not be allowed to do that, but the reality is he knows now that if he does that, he's going to be impacting his neighbors downstream. He's going to be probably setting himself up to lose a lot of his backyard. He's going to have that stream in his swimming pool unless he builds it up high. For every action, there is a reaction. That's basic physics. And when you go and mess around with Mother Nature, she sometimes bites back. The law and the science both are on the side of passing this. I'm a reasonable environmentalist. There's a lot of other differences of opinion here in this chamber tonight. But it's going to be your call to make on whether voluntary or educational is going to be enough. The compromises have already been made on this. There's effectively no enforcement mechanism on this, except for future development. The gentleman who's running his cattle through the stream, he admits that he's creating a huge amount of turbidity, although he doesn't use that language. Does he have an obligation, a moral obligation, to ensure that he's doing the best he can not to pollute the water? A lot of people would think that he does. That with property rights come property owners' responsibilities. We don't hear that much. I want to be the first person to sign up for the Northwest Arkansas Property Responsibilities Association. Now, photos don't lie. And so you can see what the facts are on the ground and in the streams. I want to leave with this comment. There's some discussion about whether the city engineer ought to be left with the authority to update the BMP manual. Well, of course that should be the case. What part of variance do people not hear? We have zoning laws. Do we have people coming up here every time you meet demanding that the zoning laws be repealed because it may not that it may inconvenience them? That's why they have the variance. Thank you very much.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir, can I ask you a question, please?
Mr. Orr.
Do you live along a stream? I didn't hear it at the beginning.
I do not live along a stream. I wish I did, and if I owned property along a stream, I would be out there stomping around.
Good steward.
I would be demanding that everybody along that stream be as conscientious as I try to be.
Just a couple of quick points.
Yes, sir.
In 1970, when I was in college taking a course called Man and His Environment, there was eutrophication in Beaver Lake at that time. And thank God it jumped on it, and it's nothing like it was back in 1970 up at this end of the lake. Third point, it was mentioned here that berms could be built. How do you talk to the guy down the creek if you build a berm here and it pushes water away from you, but it goes down and gets neighbor C?
I think berms are a very bad idea.
Oh, you do?
But if I have a house and my neighbors upstream who I have no control over are causing those floods to become more intense and the flood peaks to be higher, I'm going to do what it takes to protect my home.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
He's finally going to come up.
Hello, my name is Joe Edgman, and I'm the former mayor of Tawnytown. And I have my daughter lives here in Fayetteville, and my grandchild, and her husband, and my daughter goes to House Academy. And one of the reasons I came here, because Sarah Lewis called and told me this ordinance was coming up. And I've been to practically all of the watershed meetings. I've had to listen to other cities complain about someone dumping water on them. One of my neighbors is always accusing Springdale, making them a flood zone. They talk about, well, are we penalizing 1,300 or 1,400 folks and all they're on the streams? Well, the truth is, most cities, including Bentonville, all the way across North Arkansas, was having to start really looking at low-impact development. It's no longer just build it, and it used to be when they did a development, and you talk to an engineer, and this get the water and get it away from development as quick as you can. They didn't necessarily look at, well, this might flood 300 acres down the road. And everyone has their flood zones. Tawnytown has them too. And if we're not careful, we could increase, if we just let the water flow as fast as we can out, we'll be flooding Johnson, Fayetteville, everybody. Because then our floodplains will increase. And then those property owners may not realize it, but their property values is going to go down. So a lot of talk about brush and animals in it. That's true, you can get that. I live out in areas where we get a lot of skunks and stuff that come out of the woods. But then again, I've been on your trails, and I don't know, my family all loves it. They all love going on trails. I've not seen a lot of critters. You know, maybe they are, they're hiding, you know. I've not seen a lot of crime or anything. My daughter's job, I'm certain there is going to be a certain amount. But I'm not hearing it. I think that an ordinance is designed to protect the welfare of the city. Just like your codes, if you have building codes, you have your setbacks. Okay? Someone wants to go and put a development in, they can't just say, well, I'm going to build against the bank, the stream. Well, you got your setbacks, you got codes for that. Well, you know, if you got areas, you got puddles and stuff, areas is prone for mosquitoes. Our city hasn't. We made someone come in and fill the land in because they had a mosquito problem in our business district. So, I mean, you can say we're inconveniencing somebody. But the goal is that you're truly trying to protect the interests of everybody. Now, if it comes down to the point where you see something that's obviously wrong, you might have to do some variances. Okay? If you have a resident that has 50 feet as an entire backyard, you might have to, the engineer might have to go in there and make a determination. Now, why is the engineer? They're the ones educated to do it. I don't think most of the council people, and I've been a mayor, and I don't think I'd have to get an engineer or city engineer to go out and make a determination on codes or whatever. Sorry about that. But anyway, the truth is...
Folks, I might ask you to turn off your cell phone.
That's actually my fault. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Somebody's calling saying to see you on TV.
But I just think that... I think, you know, if you're dealing with if you're dealing with residents and it's in their entire backyard, I think the engineer needs to go out and make a determination and see what can be done. If it's brush, briars and stuff, you know, someone may say, that's just nasty. Is there other alternatives? Okay, we're talking about people coming in new, trying to do something. And there may be alternatives that would look more pleasant. They've got a different prairie grasses, wild habitat you can put in that looks really, really nice. It doesn't have to be briars. I know I planted some. And so I think it, you know, it's not, don't make this ordinance the boogeyman. You have a lot of codes and stuff right now. If someone came in, guess what? They're going to be faced with a lot of codes they're going to have to deal with. This ordinance is basically saying the city of Fayetteville is saying, we're going to make a determination that this needs to be protected. We're not going to allow just anyone walking in and just cleaning out all the trees and then creating a flood problem. They're addressing it. And by Fayetteville doing it, you're going to start seeing other cities doing it. I know Fayetteville gets accused of being the only green city, but I guarantee you, Springdale's not looking at it. Bentonville, Rogers, seriously having to rethink their ordinances on green, low impact development. Now, Tiny Town, we're not at what they call large scale MS4, so a lot of times they don't really cross our boards, but we're going to be there. And I think that, I think when you talk about people that want to develop an area, I think they're going to be looking for communities that are green and pleasant to be at. I think the reasons you have Sam here, and I notice it's funny that Sam's wholesale happens to be very green infrastructure. I have noticed that Walmart is very green. So I don't think this is just some bunch of environmentalists out there causing trouble. I think this is a trend that everybody cares about. The question is, do we get the balance in there? I think that's what most arms are. Are you going to make me clean it? Are you going to find me? I think you have to find the balance in that. I think no, you don't want to go out and start finding everybody because golly, you know. I think you just have to start saying, okay, we're committed to protect our city. We don't want everyone to come in and just, golly, I just bought this property, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear every tree off that creek. It looks nasty to me. So I think that's what you're doing. But if someone's like Cynthia, she has property, she's been maintaining it, they have nothing to really fear. But now if someone else comes in and says, golly, all that work that Cynthia did, we don't like it, we're going to mow it down to the ground, you know, you might come in and say, listen, that ain't happening. So you're trying to protect your community. And don't make this ordinance the boogeyman. And, you know, if there's things you need changing down the road and you see it and it's obvious, I would go that route. And I think your engineering people are fine people. I've worked with them. They're nice. They're really pleasant people. I mean, your staff and your employees are nice people. And I think if there's problems, they'll be more than happy to talk about that and address Mayor Jordan. And then y'all can come back and say, well, listen, we might have to make a few amendments to this ordinance. And come from time to time, I can tell you, they do it all the time. I mean, it's just, every 5 minutes, I couldn't keep up. So it's not a big deal. So I wouldn't throw away the ordinance or anything else. I'd say, let's stick with it. And if you see something that becomes a problem, then you know you can address it. And
thank you very much, Mayor. Really,
anyway,
really appreciate it.
Y'all
Thank you. No.
Aubrey Shepherd. I'm not carrying a cell phone, and I'm ready to go home. It's the first time I've missed seeing the Westchester Dog Show second night in years, and we did it for this. So I just want to say that I hope that people who are grandfathered in with things will understand that it seems still they don't believe it, don't trust us, and I believe it. And this is directed at future development that could be as bad as some of it I've photographed in the last 10 years in Fayetteville, and I don't want to see that happen again. So there's no cost. You don't have to, the city's not going to have to maintain this land. Sure, we want some programs to try to see the city help people improve a little with native plants and so forth. But it means no mow, no spewing of chemicals and so forth that people normally do. You don't have to fertilize native plants growing in the good soil along the soil. So with that, I'm in.
Thank you, Aubrey.
I'm in.
Now, does anybody else have anything burning in their soul to speak on tonight on this? Well, that was the discussion on the amendment. Now we will get no.
I thought we put them all together.
We did. Yeah. Take it easy, Bobby. That was a small attempt to be funny, but it didn't work out too well. So is there any other public comment on this? Well, seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. We have an amendment to vote on that, don't we?
Yes, do we want to clarify it again? Or?
We've done all this grandfathering. I've become a grandfather since I...
Me too. The motion I made was to remove the text related to the gardening definition, as Karen explained earlier.
And
the woody.
Yeah, together.
I didn't put them together actually on purpose.
You did?
Oh, you do not want them together?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we better do that one first.
Yeah, let's do that one first.
Yeah.
That means we can do another one. Yeah. Okay. So we have the change on the cultivation gardening. Right, Matthew, first?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that?
Lawns and gardens.
Anybody want to read what that was? I think I've forgotten.
Mayor, it used to say management of lawns and gardens, but no mechanized cultivation is allowed. This would take out the no mechanized cultivation, so it would allow mechanized cultivation for gardens and lawns.
Like a tiller.
Yes.
Right, a tiller, tractor, whatever.
Instead
you
of
got.
just a hoe.
It would also remove cultivation. That's part of that.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of, I want to be sure we're
from
we're
the
all.
excluded section.
Right. That's your motion?
Yes.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second on that. Any other discussion on it?
This could be a bad day.
Everybody's giving me that look.
Woody plants.
We were supposed to, that's the second, that's the other
I
amendment.
like them.
All right, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams. Yes. Gray. Yes. Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Okay, now we have another amendment to be made on the.
I'll make that amendment to, under 2C, clearing of non-invasive trees, from, it did read clearing of non-invasive woody vegetation. And it'd be, now would just read clearing of non-invasive trees.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have an amendment, but this is a new amendment.
Yeah, thanks.
Correct? All righty. Then I will have to
No, actually, Mayor, both of this was
Well, there
discussed
we
beforehand.
go.
We've already heard once.
Yeah, this is the same thing.
Okay.
This was came from
Well, I just
staff.
want to be sure that we're correct on this. I don't want a bunch of folks say they want to speak on that. and didn't get to.
Well, we can have staff clarify that if you'd like.
All right.
Is that correct, staff?
Both of these were talked about before the
Okay,
public
good.
comments.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good, good, good. All right. Well, if there's not any discussion, yes, Matthew.
I separated these amendments because I intended to vote against this redefinition. I think the science is clear that there are other pieces of vegetation, especially non-native woody, however we define that. That should include shrubs and bushes and things that are smaller than trees. That's an important part of the filtering mechanism. So I just wanted to be on record as not supporting that. Oh, I'm sorry. I said I intend to vote against this amendment because I believe that it is not just trees which help filter the sediment out of the water. The other vegetation is also helpful, so I don't think this redefinition is the right thing to do.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second on it?
Yes, we had a
I'm sorry.
We're voting on the second amendment
We're
now.
voting on the second amendment. We have a motion and a second, correct? All right. Any other discussion on it? Sandra, would you?
I'm sorry, we're voting for the amendment. Yes
Well,
is,
well,
yes
you-
is
you-
Yes is
for,
for the
and
amendment.
no is against. Okay, I just want to clarify. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Petty,
No.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams,
No.
Gray,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay. Well, I take it we're going to leave this on the second reading.
Yes.
So we'll
Please.
all get to come back in 2 weeks and we'll have another special bonding time.
We had 2 minutes.
So at this moment,
limit on
I think
public
that,
comment.
would the council like a break or would you
Oh,
just like to
please.
keep?
It's 10:30.
Let's get going.
I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and call the city council meeting back to order. The first order of business is an appeal. An appeal of the city engineer's determination regarding the driveway approach at 3172 Warwick Drive. It was tabled at the last meeting. Jeremy?
We
I believe.
successfully convinced this applicant to delay his hearing tonight. So they're actually requesting to be tabled for 2 meetings. They're hoping to work out a solution. We'll see if that works out. But,
Right.
Both the property owner and the developer were here tonight, and they were able to have that conversation. So the request is from both parties to table for 2 meetings.
It'll be
So
March
moved.
15th.
Good.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Way to go.
Boy, things are moving right along now, aren't they?
Brenda did it and Adela seconded.
All right, we've got a tabling. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams, Gray, Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Yes, when the bunch is fresh, it goes on for a while, but as the evening wears on. Number one, amend 2011 adopted budget, a resolution amending the 2011 city budget by reappropriating up to $58,840,788. I can't believe I could actually read that at this time. In bonded or ongoing capital projects, outstanding obligations, and grant funded items previously adopted in 2010 city budget but not completed or delivered in 2010. Paul.
There's no provision in the Arkansas state statute for multi-year budgeting. So at the end of each calendar year, the budget ends for that year. So any ongoing projects, any bond money, any contracts in process, or any capital projects that span multiple years, there's no provision to take care of those. So early in the subsequent year, we always ask that those projects, those bond monies, grants and reimbursements that span multiple years are carried over and reauthorized by the council into the new budget. Now this would be adding $58.8 million to the new budget, and that would take this year's budget, the 2011 budget, up to $177 million. And I'll be happy to answer any question.
Y'all got any questions? Brendan?
I have no questions, just a statement that, as I recall, this was on the consent agenda. Mr. Alderman Farrell said, let's move it to the regular agenda.
Because he wanted Paul to be able to hear the discussion on the Streamside
And he said, well, we
Ordinance.
don't want to keep Paul here too late. And so we said, well, we'll just put it under first item under first business. And here's
That's what
Thank you, Paul.
Highly unfortunate.
Highly unfortunate.
I move we accept this as.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Do we have any public comment on this? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. Any other final comments from council on this? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams, Gray, Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Okay, number two, Ozarks Electric Corporation Cost Share Agreement Ordinance to waive competitive bidding to approve the cost share agreement with Ozarks Electric Corporation in the amount of $38,250.48 for the extension of power to the Stone Mountain Water Pump Station, to approve a project contingency of $7,500 and approve a budget adjustment of $45,751. Kit.
Whereas the city of Fayetteville is constructing a new water pump station, Stone Mountain Water Pump Station, which will be more economically powered by a new three-phase 460-volt power line. And whereas Ozark Electric Cooperative Corporation owns and operates the electric utility that will serve the Stone Mountain Water Pump Station and has agreed to share the cost of the construction of the three-phase 460-volt power line to serve the pump station. Now therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby determines the above facts constitute an exceptional situation in which competitive bidding is not deemed practical or feasible, and therefore waives formal competitive bidding and approves a cost share agreement with Ozarks Electric Cooperative Corporation in the amount of $38,250.48 for the extension of power to the Stone Mountain Water Pump Station, and approves a project contingency of $7,500. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby approves a budget adjustment, a copy of which is attached as Exhibit B in the amount of $45,751.
See staff got any, Dave?
Nothing to add, sir.
Okay.
I'd move that we go to
then
the
sit
second
down.
reading.
Okay.
I'd move that we go to the second reading.
Second.
Thank you, David. Okay, we have a motion to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams, Gray, Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
An ordinance to waive competitive bidding, to approve a cost share agreement with Ozarks Electric Cooperative Corporation in the amount of $38,250.48 for the extension of power to the Stone Mountain Water Pump Station, to approve a project contingency of $7,500 and to approve a budget adjustment of $45,751.
And so,
I move we go to the third and final reading.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, please call the roll.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams. Yes. Gray. Yes. Teal.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
An ordinance to waive competitive bidding, to approve a cost share agreement with Ozarks Electric Cooperative Corporation in the amount of $38,250.48 for the extension of power to the Stone Mountain Water Pump Station, to approve a project contingency of $7,500 and to approve a budget adjustment of $45,751.
I tell you what, though, now that I mentioned this, and I hate to say this, but I think I had a call or two about to waive competitive bidding. I think maybe, David, you might want to give a quick explanation of that.
Yes, sir. The reason we're waiving competitive bidding is because Ozark Electric owns the utility. They're the only ones that can do the work and authorize work on that utility. So
That's
it's not an item that we can actually bid.
That's what I remember. I'd forgotten that. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, is there any other final comments from the council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Teal.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, RZN 10-3732, Brown, 2600 Crossover Road. An ordinance rezoning that property described in the zone petition RZN 10-3732 for approximately 1.64 acres located at 2600 Crossover Road from RA Residential Agricultural to RO Residential Office.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the zone classification of the following described property is hereby changed as follows: from residential agricultural to residential office, as shown on Exhibits A and B attached hereto and made part hereof. Section 2, that the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas is hereby amended to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1 above.
The Planning Commission voted 7-1 to forward this to you with a recommendation of approval. It's 1.6 acres. It's got currently east of Crossover, west of Candlewood subdivision. It's a very awkward shaped, long, linear lot. It currently has 2 single-family homes and 4 horses on the property, has for quite some time. The property owner is looking to rezone the property to RO, residential office. We felt it was a consistent zoning with our future land use plan. We did talk to the applicants about a form-based zone here, and as I explained at the agenda session, it'd be very difficult because of the linear nature of this particular piece of property to be able to do that. Because it's not a deep property, and the frontage requirements for a form-based code, it's simply, we couldn't find a way to make it work conceptually. So we did recommend in favor of the RO zoning. We had a couple members of the public speak, but not any real specific issues to address. And staff is recommending approval.
Questions, comments from the council, public?
Mayor, I just say, like I said before at the agenda meeting, that this, when this came along, it had a serious impact on Mr. Brown, and this has come through the Planning Commission, and it was passed by the Planning Commission, and as soon as you get public comment, I would move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion second, go to the second reading. Let me take some public comments. Anybody wants to comment on it? Any public comment on this?
Honorable Mayor Jordan and esteemed City Council members, and Mr. Kit Williams and Sarah, Kit Williams, Esquire. I really appreciate your patience and service to the City of Fayetteville, especially tonight. I think you ought to put a little time limit. I'll try to keep mine under 64 seconds. I'm J.B. Hayes. I reside at 2595 North Sherwood Drive, City of Fayetteville, directly east of the property to be rezoned, requested. I'm the closest to the property adjoining him to the east, and he has 2 older houses. I would support my friend and neighbor in his request for rezoning, and I have no objections or restrictions. But I would suggest you put a time limit in the number of people that can talk, like 2 or 3 minutes to them. But I think I kept it under 60 seconds.
You did very well.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes.
Alex Moore. Your Honor, Mayor Jordan, and esteemed council members, I'm the grandson of Mr. Brown, and I am quoting this message on his behalf. The size and design of this property is not conducive for residential, and the more logical choice would be for small office buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ben Israel, 1501 Star Drive, Fayetteville. I was born in 1942. No, I'm just kidding.
You didn't have running water either, did you?
We had turbid water in the swimming pool, though.
We were all raised in that log cabin, weren't we?
I started looking at this property in 2004, Mr. Brown, and we, at that time, thought the highest and best use of it was our residential office. There's a nice fence behind it, a masonry fence, across the street to church, and most of 265 is, not most of, but a lot of 265 is RO or commercial. So I'd highly recommend that you, ask you to consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Bring it back to City Council. We have a motion and a second to go to second reading. Is that correct? That's right. Alderman Farrell?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment. Thanks to Dr. Hayes for making those comments. And I talked to several residents that live in the Candlewood subdivision. Some of them had a couple of concerns initially, talking about the traffic flow on 265, what that would do to the traffic flow. And some of those questions were answered when I got some information from city staff on the way 265 is likely going to look. And that calmed a lot of those questions down from those folks. There was also questions of sound, whether that would help or hurt. I think if I read it right, they think it might improve the sound buffer between Candlewood and the street, which can get pretty loud on 265 with as busy as it is. Hopefully we'll improve that street soon. So the bigger issue with me is the restriction on the landowner, because you really can't build houses there. And so I think this is really the only thing for him to do and keep the property valuable as it is, and so that he can do with it what he wants. So definitely support it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to go to second reading. Any other comments? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning the property described in rezoning petition RZN 10-3732 for approximately 1.64 acres located at 2600 Crossover Road from residential agricultural to residential office.
Okay.
Move to suspend the rules and go to third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning that property described in rezoning petition RZN 10-3732 for approximately 1.64 acres located at 2600 Crossover Road from residential agricultural to residential office.
Okay, any final comments from the council on this? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Sorry. Kenyon?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you say Kenyon?
Okay, here we go. Number 4, vacation 10-3735, Firestone ordinance approving vacation 10-3735 submitted by H2 Engineering Incorporated, properly located at 1965 Box Avenue to vacate a utility easement, a total of 240 square feet.
Whereas the City Council has the authority under ACA 1454-104 to vacate public grounds or portions thereof which are not required for corporate purposes. And whereas the City Council has determined that the following described portion of the platted utility easement is not required for corporate purposes. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby vacates and abandons the following utility easement as described in Exhibit B attached. Section 2. That a copy of this ordinance, duly certified by the city clerk, along with the map attached and labeled Exhibit A, shall be filed in the office of Recorder of the county and recorded in the deed records of the county. Section 3. That this vacation approval is subject to the conditions of approval as follows and shall not be in effect until all conditions are met. 1. Any damage to or relocation of existing utility lines will be at the property owner's expense. 2, the easement vacation shall not be accepted until the existing fire hydrant located in the southeast corner is relocated by the applicant.
Jeremy.
It's a relatively straightforward vacation application related to the Firestone development that's been approved by the Planning Commission. It's simply a corner of a utility easement that is not needed by any utility companies. All utility representatives signed off in favor, and the Planning Commission voted 8-0. Staff did recommend approval.
Comments, questions, council on this? Any public comment on this? I'll entertain a motion to go.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Go to second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
An ordinance approving VAC 10-3735 submitted by H2 Engineering Incorporated for property located at 1965 Box Avenue to vacate a utility easement, a total of 240 square feet.
Okey dokey.
Suspend the rules, go third and final reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
An ordinance approving VAC 10-3735 submitted by H2 Engineering Incorporated for property located at 1965 Box Avenue to vacate a utility easement, a total of 240 square feet.
Any final comments from the council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Petty,
Yes.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Teal,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Okay, number 5, appeal chapter 166.18 of the UDC, an appeal regarding staff interpretation of chapter 166.18 of the UDC. Jeremy?
This is an appeal by a citizen of the Chapter 166.18 Master Street Plan setbacks and how that is administered by the city. While the subject of this application is really a sign and the location of a sign, there was a sign permit denied on this particular piece of property located on 3155 North College Avenue. I want to reiterate for the record, this is not a sign appeal. Those aren't allowed to go in front of the city council. What it is looking at the application of this particular ordinance related to properties within the city. This particular property was developed many years ago. It's had some additions and changes over the last few years. The applicants applied for a sign permit. Chapter 166.18 states that the city shall require the developer applicant to establish a right-of-way setback line based on the right-of-way requirements designated by the Master Street Plan. That Master Street Plan is a document that you all adopt about roughly every 5 years. We're actually in the process of updating that plan currently. It is established under state law that the City Council can adopt a Master Street Plan to prohibit improvements within an established Master Street Plan setback. That right-of-way line is considered the property line for developments that come through. Because this sign is associated with that development and with that addition that occurred, I think, 2006, 2007, we established the setback that we utilize is the established Master Street Plan setback line. On this particular piece of property, when that addition occurred, it was actually a 55 feet from right-of-way line that was established. We're actually measuring a little less than that, 48.5 feet, and the reason is because between the time the applicant established that line and today, the City Council adopted a lesser right-of-way Master Street Plan for this particular location, that 48.5 feet. So that's really what we're measuring. The applicant's position is that the existing right-of-way along College Avenue, not the Master Street Plan right-of-way, should be used for any type of setback for this particular structure. And that's where I think really the disagreement comes into place. As the city code states that you all are charged with making a decision with any type of interpretation of a city code and an appeal of that city code. We have provided an alternate solution. I discussed that with some of you at the tour on Monday. I think one of the alternate solutions could certainly provide some relief, and one of them could provide all of the relief that this applicant is seeking without actually having to approve the appeal. We obviously don't feel like you should grant the appeal. We think this is an important part of our code that we utilize every day in issuing building permits across the city. and it's applied consistently to all those properties. What we do recommend, however, is the City Council pass a resolution tonight, basically denying the appeal but approving a master street plan resolution for this particular piece of property, reducing the amount of master street plan right-of-way required for this piece of property. There are two options there. One, you could look at what the Planning Commission is currently considering. Staff's actually recommending a reduction further of 5 feet from centerline for the master street plan right-of-way of College Avenue. So instead of 48.5 required today, it would go to 43.5. That's something that we're bringing forward. We've got positive signs, at least in discussion with the Planning Commission for that cross-section, to bring forward to them formally and then to you all as a City Council to reduce that right-of-way. And so that's certainly a recommendation we would support for this particular piece of property. Also, we discussed another option at the tour and also at the agenda session, that the City Council actually has the right to reduce the right-of-way all the way down to the existing right-of-way, which is 40 feet from centerline. The existing right-of-way today. That right-of-way is owned by the state, so you have no authority to give up the state's right-of-way, but you could reduce the city's measurement to that 40-foot line. We are certainly supporting, in this particular case, a recommendation to reduce it to at least 43.5. I think that would provide a great deal of relief, at least 5 feet, and staff would support that resolution. We don't feel like the appeal is warranted, however, and would recommend a denial of the actual appeal of how our master street plan setbacks are measured throughout the city.
Okay, now let me ask you all something. Do you want to hear from the applicant now, or do you want, I think that would be the proper thing to do, and then just ask whatever question you want from everybody. How's that sound? Sounds good. All right, Tracy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I don't know that I've ever made an argument this late at night, but I'll give it a try. I distributed via email yesterday evening a package that was generally our position on the interpretation of Chapter 166.18 relative to signs and our opinion of whether a sign is considered development or what have you, and that we don't feel like, and have hopefully, if you had an opportunity to look at that package, we've offered enough proof in there that Chapter 166.18 has not been applied evenly or the same throughout over the last decade, or consistently over the last decade. I think I included some exhibits or whatever that would prove that. Basically, we are here because we need a sign. And we need a particular size sign and setback at the 40-foot right-of-way, setback measured from the 40-foot right-of-way, which has been historic along North College Avenue. In fact, in the package I sent to the council, I think it's exhibit, I believe it was exhibit 2, the second, I've got it in front of me. Exhibit 2 shows that even in 2001, 2001, we did improvements on the building at 2223 North College, where we also added to the building, and the master street plan setbacks would have come into play in that particular remodeling as well. After that remodeling was done, the building was expanded. We later applied for a sign permit, and it was granted to be measured at the setback at 10 feet from the historic 40-foot right-of-way. Even on this property alone, we expanded the building in 2006, and the master street plan right-of-way applied to that expansion. Again, the expansion of the building would be considered development. Requires a building permit, could potentially put additional impact on the surrounding infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Later on in 2007, we also pulled a parking lot permit after these improvements were done. That parking lot was designed and the setbacks for the parking spaces or whatever was also measured from the historic 40-foot right-of-way, not 55 feet. And that actually was not in your package. It was something that we researched and found today, and I have copies of that with me that I can distribute if the council wants to see it. Basically, though, is this. You know, our avenue to being able to get the sign that we need required this appeal. And we really don't, it doesn't really make any difference to us if the appeal is granted as far as the sign itself goes. I'm not asking the council to set any precedents tonight as far as Chapter 166.18 goes. And I appreciate the staff recently coming up with supporting a measurement at 43.5 feet from center line. We appreciate that, and that's the spirit of working with us, and but it doesn't help us. This parking lot was designed, and again, from the 40-foot right-of-way, so therefore the islands that are in the parking lot are basically 25 feet deep. If we measure 10 feet back from the right-of-way, the rear of the sign will be right at the edge of the rear island. If we move it back so much as an inch, it will drop off into the parking lot, and so now we're down to shrinking the sign and setting it back further, et cetera, which for a 35,000 square foot building, the limit of 75 square feet on the sign is already well, in our opinion, it could be bigger, and we'd be very happy with that, but that's all we can have by code. So I've talked to some of the council members, and we are okay with if the city council would rather deny this appeal, but allow us to change the right-of-way along North College on our side of the road or what have you at 40 feet from center line. Then we could reapply for our permit and get what we need, and we'd be okay either way. Like, answer whatever questions you have.
Yeah, what questions do we have for both? I mean, I guess we'll just throw it out that way. Matthew?
On the tour yesterday, I had one question that I didn't ask, and that was if we went with the 43.5-foot right-of-way, have you considered the option of extending the island there?
Yes, it's possible to do something like that, other than the city has a regulation where we have to have 24-foot center lanes or drive aisles or whatever, parking lots. When we redid that, I don't know if you remember what the building looked like in 2006 in the parking lot, but it was almost 100% pavement. We actually shrank the size of the parking lot, added more green space and all the landscape area out front along North College. That used to actually all be parking spaces. And at the south end towards the lot, it's again measured at the historic right-of-way of 40 feet. Up at the northern end of the lot, we had more room because of the shape of the property or whatever. So we actually set our parking spaces back further and installed a sidewalk and added a bunch of green space or whatever. And so therefore we closed that drive lane down to 24 feet. So if we extended the island as you're speaking of, then our drive lanes would not be in compliance with code.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that that you're all right with doing away with the appeal, or not the appeal not being granted, and the 40-foot from right away, if we can do a resolution to remove that parcel to a 40-foot right away to allow you for that sign, you're okay with that? I
would be okay with that as well. The end net result gets us what we need for those businesses that are located at that building. And one thing I wanted to add is I understand the need for maintaining right-of-way as much as possible for road improvements, future improvements, or what have you. But when we redid that building in 2006, at that time, we took and we put all overhead utilities underground, installed sidewalks, et cetera, drainage, what have you, whatever. All the improvements along that stretch of North College, at least on our side of the road, they're done, they're complete. The city doesn't have to put in a sidewalk later or anything like that. We've already done all that. And
is the water line and the sewer line not still in the street?
That's underneath the street. It's actually underneath North College. In fact, I was talking to Dave Jurgens about that earlier today.
And it's a relatively old line.
It could be 100 years old for all I know.
Jeremy, the master street plan it's our tool and guide for development. What would you recommend if I wanted to make an amendment to resolve this, to go back to the 40-foot setback so he could deny the appeal, but on this particular piece, go 40-foot right away from 40 feet in the right of way?
Kit would probably write the resolution, but I would certainly make a motion to deny the appeal, but with a resolution in that same motion to approve a resolution amending the master street plan for this property, 3155 North College Avenue, reducing the master street plan right-of-way to 40 feet in this location. I think that would accomplish what you just asked me.
What you would have to do, if you're gonna reduce the master street plan even down from the 47.5 that is recommended down to even 43 or 40, you will have to follow the code section, which is 16604B3AI, and find that that there is an undue hardship or practical difficulties with the subject property that justifies reducing the master street plan. Before you make that motion, I'd like to ask Jeremy one question about that. If Mr. Hoskins was going to build his sign or place his sign within his island, so it would not be able to be 10 feet back from the established setback, but it'd be like 6.5 feet back, how much smaller would his sign have to be? I think he wants a 75 square foot sign. How much smaller would the sign be if he kept it within his island?
At a 6 foot or 5 foot tall, 6 foot tall sign, the display surface area is measured, not necessarily, it's just the display surface area is 75 square feet. So for every foot that it reduces, then you'd have to make that calculation. But
23%.
So how many square foot would your sign be able to be?
Roughly 52 square feet.
52 to 55.
That's probably
about 52 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So you would all be determining that that having a sign 52 square feet instead of 75 square feet would be an undue hardship and a practical difficulty for his property.
Or when we were out there on the tour, where the sign would be moved to, where he would have to put it, it seems to me like it would present an undue hardship.
Well, if he could only have a 75-foot sign, that would be correct, because that would be impeding into the drive aisle, as he explained. But he does have the option in the signed ordinance to have it placed closer to the right-of-way, but with somewhat of a reduction in size down to 50-something square feet instead of 75 square feet.
I'd like to go that way with the resolution, except I'd like to have it worded that if we agree to the 40-foot, if the council agrees to the 40-foot from the right-of-way on the master street plan exemption, then the appeal would be denied or withdrawn. I'd rather have that first. If the council agrees to the 40-foot, then the appeal is withdrawn. Is that?
Well, it would, you can't vote on the 40.
Well, he's not withdrawing his appeal, I don't think.
No, he said it didn't make any difference to him if he got the 40 feet. He said didn't I understand you to say that?
Yes, sir. But there is one thing I'd like to clarify, a statement that Mr. Williams just made. Regardless of the size of sign, it can't be moved closer to the right of way. In other words, so I didn't want the council to
I guess I'm confused.
Well, I guess I am too, because you had made the statement that the smaller sign could be moved closer to the right of way. The setback is the setback.
Is that not correct?
That's correct. 10 feet is the minimum you can be.
Yeah, that's
closest you can be to the right-of-way line. It's the right-of-way line that would potentially move. I would offer that the reason we're recommending, we would certainly recommend 43.5 and potentially even 40 as a unique hardship, is that this is a fully developed property. There are five lanes of traffic here. There's a sidewalk, there is green space. And so I think if you look up and down College Avenue in this particular location, there is not another property that has this particular condition. I would offer that as a particularly unique situation in that Mr. Hoskins redeveloped his property in the last few years and did provide that infrastructure. And so that's certainly part of what you could utilize as a finding. But Mr. Hoskins is correct in that the sign can only be 10 feet from the right of way. What would happen is if the island is the impediment, then it has to get smaller because the sign is reduced in length.
So you're okay with 40 feet, bottom line? I just want to get this in.
That's not his first choice, I don't think.
It's not my first choice. That's correct. That's correct.
Mayor, I would like to make a comment on that, and that's just because the reason, Jeremy and I talked about the 40-foot, the likelihood that you're going to have a road that's greater than a 5-lane road going through this section of town is probably not very likely. And that's why we have some comfort in getting that closer to the 40 you're talking about. The concern that we have, though, is that we're experiencing on Garland Avenue with the state construction project, that while we have aged water lines and things running under the road, when they improve projects, they require that to be moved out of the lane area into your right-of-way areas. So if ever in the future we came back and did that and you had something in the way, then you're talking about dealing with that movement aspect. So, I mean, we don't know if that would happen. I don't know the age of the line any more than Tracy does, but I don't want to give up something that we later have to come back and get if we have to move a line underneath the road out into the actual uncovered road area.
And I should tell you, I talked with David Jurgens about this issue, and he said that the water line at that particular location is very old. They've had problems with it, and even if the highway department does not come back to improve it, he would like to see the water line, the water main moved out of the road so that when it blows or when it needs to be replaced, you don't have to dig up College Avenue. You'll be off College Avenue when you're digging it up.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I say?
Well, I mean, let the city
I'm not
attorney.
relinquishing my floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's still got the floor and kids.
Well, I just wanted to convey that because Mr. Jurgens, I guess, is not here now, but I talked to him yesterday, I think, about this particular issue. Now, I should say that the only thing this would do, this is not right-of-way. The city has not gained any right-of-way from Mr. Hoskins. This is only would keep development out of the place where if we needed to move the line and we were buying the right-of-way, it wouldn't have a sign on it that would be a more expense to the city. But we don't own anything beyond the 40 feet.
What's your take on that?
Actually, I talked to Dave Jurgens about, well, while you guys were having your very long, extensive, grueling meeting on the Streamside thing, the line is 65 years old. And there's not been any problems with that line along North College in our area. They have had problems with the line down in front of Burger King. In fact, he told me it happens every Thanksgiving Day, as a matter of fact, for the last 3 years running. Also, bear something in mind. The cross-section of the road there is 55 feet. The city has 80 feet of right-of-way. The city has 11 feet on both sides to locate utilities or whatever. That is the condition all over town in every street all over town. Where you see the exterior edge of the sidewalk, that's the limitations that the city has. Okay, so they have 11 feet outside the highway to put whatever utilities or what have you. And regardless, if the sign is set back 10 feet from the historic right-of-way, and Jeremy is saying 43.5 feet, we're saying 40 feet, the sign is set back 10 feet. So you take the 10 feet minus the 3.5, the sign is still 7.5 feet back.
Hang on just a minute,
Yeah.
Mr. Hostin. Let's all get kind of, I know
Okay.
Brenda
All I
wants
want
to
to
ask
say
some
is,
questions.
I'd like a resolution for number one is to give him, change the Master Street Plan, 40-foot right-of-way, and if that passes, then right along the same thing.
Why don't you just have one resolution that does it both? And the
Yes, what I
resolution
mean.
would say
If it
that
passes, then the appeal's removed.
that the city council has determined that an undue hardship or practical difficulty has occurred on Mr. Hoskins' property justifying reduction of the setback line to the 40-foot setback. And section 2 is that the appeal is therefore denied.
If the first is passed.
Well, you pass them both at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, Brenda, did you have any questions you wanted to?
Well, I just wanted to say, what, does 3.5 feet make that much difference in all of this?
It does,
I mean,
Mr.
it doesn't
Hoskins'
seem,
court.
I mean.
Only you
No,
can do that.
No, I'm talking about, does 3.5 feet make that much difference in the water sewer line issue?
I agree with her.
So that's all I was asking. This is so belated, it really doesn't matter now.
Okay.
And I do appreciate your patience, by the way. I know it's late, and it's awful. And
So was that your motion then to pass that resolution?
And we got a second. Is there any other discussion on it? Okay. Would you like to have me have it read back, or has everybody got it? Okay. Any other public discussion on it, I guess? Well, see.
hey, come on, they've stuck it out all night.
Dr. Hayes, that would have actually been funnier about 4 hours ago. That's good, though. All right, if there's not any other discussion, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Teddy?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Gray? Yes. Teal?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Okay, well, that concludes our evening. Well, you're certainly welcome.
It was worth it, huh?
Is there any other announcements? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
It's still Tuesday.